there's going to be one question on everybody's mind between now and draft night. Marvin Harrison Jr. or a whole bunch of first-round picks? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Locked On AZ Cards. Still locked out of my damn Twitter account, but Locked On AZ Cards works all the same. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I sped through my opening for myself because sharing a split screen with me right now is a man who may become public enemy number one among Marvin Harrison Jr. truthers. He is the host of Locked On Vikings, Luke Braun. Luke, thanks for joining me, dude.
This is a long-awaited revenge on Monti Ossenfort for declining the trade up for Anthony Richardson that the Vikings wanted to do, and instead giving that to the Texans.
Because you and I were DMing last year closer to draft time, and I was asking you,
like, it's happening.
What's going on here? But you called this. You called the attempt last year where it's like, this new GM may go postal with future capital.
He's insane.
To move up. Yeah, and it didn't happen. But Luke, what the hell is going on this year, bro? Walk me through your thought process of the trade with Houston really quick, and then tell me what that leverage looks like now for Minnesota in their future.
Last year they were at 23. So coming from 23 to 3, that would have taken a lot. They were willing to do that. If that trade went through, it would have broken your brain in half. It didn't. Whatever. We move on. The next trade that's going to break your brain in half. No, so the Vikings are at 11. They want a quarterback really, really bad. And they will not get outbid by Vegas or Denver. So if you're a Raiders or a Broncos fan watching this, like hoping that the Vikings are maybe going to be weenie, I'm sorry, you're out of this. It's Kwesi's going to outbid you. It's fine. You're getting the next guy.
Yeah.
So they have traded now this year's second and next year's second for a first rounder, an additional first rounder from Houston. That's pick number 23. So they now have 11 and 23. And they want to use that as ammo to move up. And in terms of if it will cost just those two or just those two and more, and next year's first, or maybe next year's first in a pick swap or whatever, I think depends on exactly how the QB board looks at the time. And right now, they might try to get this done before the draft even starts. They might try to get this done in the next couple of weeks. So their preference, I hate to break it to you, is New England at number 3.
Sure.
So I if New England says, no, we're taking Drake May. And they say, thanks, but no thanks. We're not doing this. We can't control it. I mean, Vikings can't control that. They will then turn their attention to Arizona and say, okay, quarterbacks have gone 1, 2, 3. We don't want to get leapt for the next guy, which is probably JJ McCarthy. What do we do? And I think because there's that cliff, and whatever the difference you feel is between, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, that kind of trio, and JJ McCarthy, wherever you feel that difference is. To be honest, it's likely that wherever you feel that difference is smaller than wherever the NFL feels that difference is. Right. So be prepared for that. And you might disagree with the league on this one. Get ready to do that. But if they go up to get QB4, I'm going to guess that the next year's first might still be on the table, but you might have to do something coming back. And the trade will be a little bit less. Even though going from the 3rd pick to the 4th pick historically isn't all that much. I mean, it's only one pick, right? It might be different because you're getting QB3 to QB4. And in this particular draft, there's a cliff there. And so you're not going to pay the extra premium for the top 3 guy when you're getting a top 4 guy. That's where I'm guessing that this goes. But they're calling New England. And if New England says no, they're calling Arizona. And if Arizona says, nope, we're taking Marvin Harrison, we're calling the Chargers. They're moving up. It's happening.
Yeah. And that's thanks for the introspection first off, because the Cardinals it's fragile right now. That's what I've been calling it over the last 18 months or so. It's new. it's like a baby who can't hold their head up.
Sure.
Yet. It's
and
very, very
it's like
new.
we don't really see the vision yet, right? Like it's going to take a couple years before you see what like Monty's trying to do.
Right. But what we have seen is methodical and rational moves to bolster the foundation of this team. We saw the proof of concept last year, and this is when the actual talent infusion begins. Now, for me, I was initially trade back, draft an offensive lineman. Be smart. Eat your vegetables. Do what Steve Keim didn't do. And then the more smart people I talk to, but having said that, if they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., call it a day, you win. The Cardinals win no matter what. It just depends on what they want the future of this organization to be. So the existential crisis that I'm in, Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, is Marvin Harrison Jr. more valuable than, let's say, just for clean cut purposes, 3 first-round picks? Is he more valuable with a team that is devoid of talent than 3 first-round picks in a wide receiver class that, if you want to bump back up to 9 and draft Roma Dunze or something
that's
that,
what I was going to say. Not in this class is my opinion. He's not.
So,
if there's one guy in the class, like that's head and shoulders above the rest, then maybe you want to take that. And I kind of feel like that's where Monty was last year with it was Paris Johnson, right?
Yeah.
With Paris Johnson was that there was like this difference between him and like the next guys, and Monty didn't want to fall down that cliff, right? He didn't want to go down below that just to like try to value pill it. But the difference to me between Marvin Harrison and someone like Rome, look, if I may throw out a spicy take here, you might still end up with the better receiver. Yeah. Like I still think that there is an overlap there in those bell curves of outcomes. So yeah, that plus an extra first plus like an edge rusher. Go get like whoever you think the late first round edge rusher is, like Jared Versey or whatever. Like, yeah. Go get something like that. Bolster your defense. Go get your next big thing, your next Chandler Jones. Like, get that right. That's the thing is the roster is barren, and you got a new GM for a reason, right? And he's going to build his thing. And I think that the difference between Marvin Harrison and the other wide receivers you'd have access to if you took like 11 and 23, isn't big enough to scare you off of doing that. That's, I guess, would be my opinion of these receivers. But here's the other thing too. Let's say the Vikings do work out a deal with New England, and New England says, yeah, we don't like these white guys. Let's go, let's draft a QB next year. We're not even really ready for one. That's kind of what the Boston media scene is saying. Is like, maybe this roster is so bad that if we drafted, Drake May here, we would just ruin him. So, let's trade down and try to build something up a little bit. We're not ready to like try for our franchise QB yet. We got to take a year off. And the Vikings trade up and they take whoever. Now you're at 4. You're getting calls from Denver and Vegas. Sure. And now you're getting those picks. So if you want to trade down, it is there for sure. Mm-hmm. You will be getting calls from, you might even get calls. Here's the nice middle ground here. Trade down with the Giants. Pick at 6. You still get Chargers. Jim Harbaugh ain't drafting a receiver. You're still getting Marvin Harrison.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing is like, so what, and I'm so happy that, especially for this specific reason, that a brain like yours hosts the Viking show, because what I'm trying to do is unlock
a good broken brain that can understand.
Yeah, well, it's got to be broken. Yeah. You've got to be able to let as many thoughts and stuff in there. You can't just be the vessel.
Have you seen what the Vikings have done to their fans? Yeah, I'm not okay.
So the reason why I say that is everybody, it seems, fans of the Cardinals have been hardwired since the beginning of the 2023 offseason that they were drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. That was it. It was going to be, and because it started so long ago, they're going to be bad. It's going to be Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. atop the draft. That's it. And then you go through the season. Oh, they need a receiver. They need a receiver. They need a receiver. And then when all the cards are out, it's like you got 3 and 27. They played a lot better than people thought. They've added these pieces. There are opportunities, and every draft is going to have 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 4 picks, it seems, from now on. So it's like it's everything is. If you go into the draft looking at it with rational thought, you lose. It's like you've got to be able to unlock this other thought process where it's like, can you do one more segment? Can you give me 10 more minutes?
Of course. Yeah.
Cool. We're gonna talk about that. He's gonna say something profound. Pause. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, joined by Luke Braun. We might do the whole show. I have no idea. I'm game. Let's go. Purpose because I want you to see me as a human every day. This is what it's like behind the scenes with your buddy talking football. We'll discuss that next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. 2 days ago, you've got your bracket now, man. It's time. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. And let me tell you what, if you know who's going to win it all, tell me, because there are like 20 teams, 15 teams. The transfer portal has been insane. You've got UConn up top, but March Madness was crazy when you knew the top 4 teams in the tournament. Now you really have no idea. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down those nets. So this is kind of an impromptu. It's supposed to be 7 minutes, and now it could be the whole show kind of thing. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings. The biggest storyline surrounding the Arizona Cardinals right now is trade back Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3. And it's going to intensify as we get closer to the draft. And one thing that was a little gasoline on the fire was Minnesota trading with the Houston Texans, acquiring their 23rd overall pick. That's really all that matters for the Arizona Cardinals. So now the Minnesota Vikings are sitting with the 11 and 23 overall pick. Cardinals have 3 and 27. Deals can be put on the table that may be more palatable for future success than just drafting one player at 3, irrespective of who the player is. If it's not a quarterback, this time it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Luke, thanks for joining me, first of all. Second of all, let's just kind of continue this conversation surrounding just team building. You think that this wide receiver group is a little bit deeper? You think, like, let me ask you this, and we can pivot here. Do you think the Arizona Cardinals, if offered 3 first-round picks, should trade back if Minnesota offers it? And this is not put on your Arizona Cardinals hat on, and not
putting that. So I think yes, and a lot of that is predicated on loosely researched Marvin Harrison Jr. opinion. Yeah. So chill on me a little bit. Yeah, sure. But so I've at least watched the quarterbacks the rookie quarterbacks pretty heavily. So I've at least watched the receivers that play with those guys, which is Rome, which is Neighbors, and there are a lot of real good receivers in this class. I think Rome is a superstar. I think that dude is immediately wide receiver 1, put on all the billboards kind of player. So if you grab him, you're happy, right? And if you grab him and a first, oh my goodness, you've gotten away with robbery. And I think what we have to do with the draft, especially with somebody like Marvin Harrison, who is very much the chosen one. The chosen one at this moment feels like this larger than life, feels like a god, right? Mm-hmm. And by the time we get into their rookie year, and maybe they're a little slow to get going because transitioning to the NFL is hard and all that. Like by the time we actually get to the point where they're playing football, those differences really, really, really shrink. Now they're just like, they're a guy on the offense, right? Rome will be, Neighbors will be, Marvin Harrison will be. And we just have to be not quite as confident when it comes to the draft. Look, we looked at the draft. Think about the 2020 draft. There were 3 major receivers in that draft. There was Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and CeeDee Lamb. Those were the 3 like slam dunk, take them top 10. You know, there were rumors that those 3 would go top 10, and it was actually super surprising that they fell out of it and that CeeDee Lamb fell all the way to the Cowboys, right? Who's the best receiver out of that class? It's Justin Jefferson. Not even on that list, right? This happens constantly. Who's the best tight end class out of the 2022 draft? That was the Kyle Pitts year, right? It ain't Pitts. He's not even playing. He got benched for Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
This happens all the time to stuff we are super, super certain about. We had Malik Willis going 2nd overall for like 2 months of draft season in 2022. It just doesn't happen that way. So while most people, I bet like consensus will have Marvin Harrison as the top wide receiver prospect in the league. You got to understand that these guys represent a range of outcomes. They could be really good. They could be really bad. They could be somewhere. They're probably going to be somewhere in the middle, right? There's this bell curve. And if you lay all their bell curves on top of each other, yeah, Marvin Harrison has more good outcomes. And shoot, if you ask me, I don't even agree with that, but I digress. But there are a lot of outcomes where Malik Neighbors is the best wide receiver to come out of this class, where somebody we don't even know is the best receiver. Like there's Puka Nakuas everywhere sometimes. Like That kind of stuff will happen all the time. So don't get so enamored with having the top guy in a good class that you're not giving up value. You're giving up probability. And there is a chance where you get so uber rewarded by getting the best receiver in the class and having traded down. Like, that is a world the Cardinals can absolutely find themselves navigating their way to if they trade down with the Vikings, or if it's not the Vikings, because the only way the Cardinals don't trade down with the Vikings, there's two scenarios. One, the Vikings got it done with the Patriots and they didn't need to. And two, the Cardinals said no. Those are the two things that can happen here. Because if the Patriots say no, the Vikings are saying yes to the Cardinals. It's there if you want it.
Jesus. That's a really good way, because I try to, describe that, where it's like, it's like when you play fantasy football, right?
Begrudgingly.
So it's like in the 7th round when you pick a guy and then everybody in the room says, "Ooh, good pick." It's like you feel like the bell of the ball. And then that guy is 90th in his position that year. That's what you're living on, the pedigree of the actual high five of drafting. So I can understand that. I think Cardinals fans have been through a lot in their own way. The dysfunctionality, the movement, everything. Last year was they overachieved and are still picking 4th overall. It was a tough year to get through, even though there were some nice future pacing things to experience. They want something nice. They want something that everybody else wants. They want a player that everybody else wants. And I think a lot of that has to do with it. I mean, I think a lot of what I think a lot of the comparisons between Neighbors and Odunze, and we won't get too off track here, Neighbors and Odunze compared to Marvin Harrison Jr. is the first two played in high-powered offenses. The latter played in a prehistoric offense, and he still put up 1,400 yards and, a handful of touchdowns and things like that.
Yeah, you need some chops to look
rated higher than Jaden Daniels accounting for 12 touchdowns a game. It's something that it's not on the exact same plane. Now, I want to ask you this. I want to mention this, and then I want to ask you. I've been a Jordan Addison fan since before USC. If the Vikings offer 11, 23, and Jordan Addison in a heartbeat, I'm taking that.
I'd rather give up next year's first.
I would take Jordan Addison in his 2nd year in this offense with Kyler Murray more than the unknown of the 2025 first. Not with the $40 million price tag, not with the absolute name recognition. I don't know why. I know he had his rookie wall last year. The dude made some special plays on the field last year.
He did good. So, he led the team in touchdowns.
If he had to trade back and that they're like, what's the package? Alex, you get to choose. It would be that.
So I would rather give up next year's first.
I know you would.
Than give up Jordan Addison. So you can have your 3 firsts, but I think that's really difficult to talk to Vikings into, because they view him and Jefferson and Hawkinson, once he's healthy, he's probably going to miss the first part of the season. And bookend tackles. They right now, part of what Minnesota sees, and you can see that they've really built this on purpose this way. They have set up a very nurturing environment. They were right next to Chicago. They saw what happened with Justin Fields, putting him behind a crappy O-line that didn't know what it was doing. He was under pressure all the time. He had no one to throw to. All he could ever do was play hero ball. And all it did was enable his worst tendencies out of Ohio State and turn him into a quarterback that nobody will even give up a day 3 pick for now. Right. Like, we all saw what happened there. The Vikings do not want to repeat that mistake. And they've been basically dueling rebuilds with Chicago, because they hired their GM in the same year and their new coach in the same year as Poles and Eberflus. Mm-hmm. We are learning a lesson from them. So I think giving up Jordan Addison would kind of undermine the whole point of what they're doing here. So I don't think that they would be willing to do it. If you want a player, look at the defense. If you want like a young player, unfortunately, you're not going to find anybody nearly as exciting, but some young whoever, right? Like if you want something, it would be more like a kicker. It would be like the late round pick swap, or you can like grab a linebacker. Brian Asamoah is a linebacker that's not starting. Like something like that would be like something you just throw in on top of it, just as like a pot sweetener.
So there is a breaking point. There is a point, so they'll just go.
I just don't think you can touch the off. If you can make the argument that player is important for the quarterback's development, I don't think they're going to give up that player to get the quarterback. Like that, that's you're sort of shooting yourself in the face there. You're peeing into the wind.
I guess that's fair. I mean, it just is an exercise. Like all of this, these are the fun things between now and the draft where it's like, oh, that would never happen. You have we can lean on that where it's like, have you watched the NFL for the last 20 years? We don't know what can and can't happen. We have no idea. So we can have these, elevated conversations that the Vikings are going to do something Wild Westian. We don't know what the target's going to be. We don't know who's going to accept it. If the Cardinals do trade back and accumulate those 3 first-round picks, if that's what it is, the Cardinals will win. If they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., they will win. It's a matter of what Monti Ossenfort's vision is for the future of this team, what's most important, and he was hired just to do that. So if you trust Monti Ossenfort, which I don't know how anybody couldn't through, 14 months of him being here, or whatever it is, 12, 14 months.
You at least got to say, incomplete info, right?
Yeah, right. Well, you at least got, so far so good has been something I've been saying because this is all so new. So far so good. We have no idea what's going to happen in the future, but all in all, so far, Luke, thank you so much for joining me, dude. I really appreciate it. And maybe we'll be doing a crossover when the trade drops in 3 days. We have no idea. They live on their own plane, the NFL does. So,
I think if it's before the draft, I don't think they do it before the draft with Arizona, to be honest. I think that would be New England because they if they do it with New England, it's because they know who Chicago and Washington are taking. But I don't think they go all the way to 4.
But this is so not Robert Kraft. But again, this is a whole other, we have no idea because this is so not Bill Belichick. He's not there anymore. So this could be the welcome to the party time for the Patriots,
who are in a worse rebuild situation than you guys are.
Yeah, it's a trip. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I will be back to recap everything that Luke just said. I mean, my brain's in a blender now, and that's exactly why I did this. I'll be right back after this. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by BetterHelp. A lot of us spend time, wishing we had more time, working or otherwise. And the question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? And the best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you, and so you can do more of it. If you're looking to start therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. Just all you got to do, fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make more time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Well, that was fascinating. Luke Braun, great. One of my good friends here. I think I say that every time I have somebody on because, got a lot of good friends here on the Locked On NFL portion, the Locked On Podcast Network. I like the other, but I interact more with the NFL guys and gals. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I brought Luke on to put all of our brains in a blender. And let's remove the part, and he obviously has his opinion. Like, what doesn't matter right now is his thoughts on Marvin Harrison Jr., which is fine. And he's not the only one that thinks that Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors are, right behind Marvin Harrison Jr. by infinitesimal amounts. And then you have guys like Trevor Sikkema, who I had on, Monday of last week, over Pro Football Focus, who said that this is maybe the highest graded player he's ever graded since being in this business. So people's opinion of things, he's still it's not important to this conversation. But all 99.9% of everything else said, massively important. He gave a little insight into who Miami is as an organization. They're moving up. Who they are as an organization in 2024, I should say. They're moving up. Come hell or high water, they're trading up to draft a quarterback if they have anything to say about it. It could be two first, and then first next year, whatever the package is. He said that they're going to target New England first, so they can have their pick above whoever picks 4 if it's not the Cardinals. And if New England says no, they're going to call the Cardinals. And if the Cardinals say no, they're going to call the Chargers, and on down the list. So he pretty much said they're going to be drafting that high. And that, when he was talking about that, and the smartest thing, like Luke's so smart, the smartest thing he said, because he was able to put into words when I don't struggle with it, but he put it in words a lot better than I did. lot more seamlessly is like, just because the hot name right now is who everybody's coveting doesn't mean that that's going to be the best player 100%. And it's an obvious sentence, but he just said it's like this happens every year. This happens every year. He talked about the 2020 draft when it was Henry Ruggs and CeeDee Lamb and whoever the third one is, it doesn't even matter, were the three wide receivers that everybody was going after, and Justin Jefferson was the best receiver in that draft, drafted in the 20s. And it's something that just puts things into perspective. Now, that's not to say that the best move would be for the Arizona Cardinals to trade back. That's not to say that I brought him on to prove to people that trading back is the right move. That was not the point of this exercise, because I don't believe that. It's still TBD. But what I wanted to bring to the table here is that the Cardinals, while this is a very plain and simple and obvious sentence, the Cardinals have more options than maybe ever that would directly, first of all, be a rational move for them. It's not like, number one overall in 2019, the drafting Kyler Murray, they were drafting Kyler Murray. So it doesn't matter. Like Kyler Murray wasn't going to go number one overall if the Cardinals weren't drafting him. If the Cardinals weren't drafting one. Quinn Williams or Nick Bosa would have gone number one overall. So it's not, it's not like, when they drafted Jonathan Cooper at 7, it's not like there were 3 teams that were offering 3 first-round picks to move up to 7, and the Cardinals said no. This is a very, very new phenomenon where teams see draft picks as leverage to move up and get what they want. Sure, teams trade up. Like Julio Jones, I think Atlanta traded up with Cleveland, to the top 10 and draft Julio Jones, 10 or 12 years ago, whenever it was. And they gave a whole lot of picks. The Herschel Walker trade, things like that. There are outliers. But every year now, there are teams that are moving up 10, 12, 8, 10, 12 spots to a top 3 spot to draft a quarterback. It just depends on which teams are up there. Now, the Cardinals last year got plenty. This year, it's different because there weren't really 4 quarterbacks that were going to go in the top 4. Houston wanted their edge rusher for the future. They just got C.J. Stroud. They went up and got him. If there were 4 quarterback-needy teams, there would 100% be 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 4. And I told you about J.J. McCarthy and all this buzz 6 weeks ago. Welcome to the potty. Not the potty. The potty. P-A-R-T-Y. My dad likes to throw in his old school Boston accent from time to time with like 3 words, and that's one of them. So I think I've just through osmosis, got it in my vocabulary. The Cardinals now have options that are immediate game changers for the organization. Last year, they didn't really know what the roster was going to be. They could have drafted Will Anderson at 3, but they ended up trading back up, drafting an offensive lineman, getting a future first, not having to give up their own second in that same year's draft, and just giving up the second that Houston had just given them to move back up. That's not Arizona Cardinals draft day stuff. It's new. But it positioned the Cardinals to go through last year, to go through, this offseason so far. It's been a week. It hasn't even been a full week of the actual league year of 2024 starting. Roger Goodell, please hyphenate the NFL league year, 2024-2025. Regular season and the playoffs, 2 different sides of 2 different years. Maybe make the league year move the league year accordingly. The Cardinals now have 2 very grave options, 2 very heavy options to weigh if Minnesota does offer. These are the decisions that GMs make that puts them on the wall somewhere. Say they trade back and draft 3 Pro Bowlers with those 3 picks. The greatest trade in the history of the draft for the Arizona Cardinals. If they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., he ends up being the best receiver for the next 7 or 8 years, put on the wall. And this isn't an easy choice. I'll just stick and pick. It's stupid to even think about moving back. I'm getting a lot of that on Twitter. It's stupid to even think about moving back. Just keep it simple. Draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Why is that the only option? It's not even about Marvin Harrison Jr. It's about one wide receiver or 3 first-round picks with a team that's still devoid of true above-average talent. And it's early. We have over a month until the draft. So many things are going to change. But as of right now, the reason why I had Luke Braun on from Locked On Vikings was to give the other perspective from the team that is going to be drafting in the top 5 and drafting a quarterback come hell or high water. And the collision course the Arizona Cardinals could face if they were to come into contact with that team and what would be offered. That was fun. I was Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.